have identified some very, very interesting, anomalous type of aircraft.
Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion, over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or rather any direction it wanted to go. Flag could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over.
Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. This is Smiles Lewis, and you are joining us for another live edition of Anomaly Now from Austin, Texas. This is the weekly 30-minute news roundup show for the nonprofit 501c3 Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka the Anomaly Archives, coming to you live from... Oh, hey, that's not Mark. I'm not Mark. It's from Austin, Texas, and we have converted this weekly news roundup to our promotional show for the now weekly Saturday emergency streamathon fundraiser series that we started back in November. It was November 21st, and we have every Saturday since been doing a 6 to 9 hour streamathon where we're trying to raise funds for our nonprofit here in Austin, Texas, and we are just past halfway to our goal. I'll hold off and not show you our cute little graphic, but we've got this great graphic. If you go to our website, anomalyarchives.org, you can see we've got this great flying saucer with a beam coming down and a little Patty Bigfoot being beamed up into the saucer, and every $5, $10, $15, $20,000 gets her closer to the saucer, and we are past the halfway point. We're past $10,000. So thank you everybody who has donated. It's very much appreciated, and we have a long way to go, and we've got 2 more streamathons coming up. We got one this Saturday, the 19th, December 19th, and then another one, the final one, December 26th, and we hope you'll join us for those. Of course, all the archives of these past streamathons are available at our YouTube channel, and we are streaming this for free live every Saturday until the end of the year. We'll see about next year on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And so, as I say, we have been converting this Wednesday night show to a promotional effort to drum up interest and get folks ready for our Saturday streamathon. And we've got a couple of our Saturday presenters are here as guests tonight, and I will bring them on. The first is a couple of friends of mine that I've known for several years, Naomi and Richie West. Hey, how y'all doing?
Hi, good evening, Smiles.
It's good to see you. It's been a long time, and I really am excited to talk to you a little bit more about what you've got planned. And we also have another presenter who has agreed to give us a presentation on Saturday, and that is Twee Snyder. Hey, Twee, how you doing? Oh, see, I'm getting bad about that. There we go. Now your mic. Sorry.
Hi.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. And I've been coming to and sticking around enjoying the streamathons. They have been a blast.
Well, I've certainly been happy to see you in the chat and interacting with the other attendees and enjoying the show. So
I can hardly wait to hear Red Pill Junkie's introduction for me. I like those. I assume that's him. It sounds like him doing the and next we have. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so cool. I love it. Anyway,
I'm glad you like that. That is actually not.
Oh, it isn't?
No, it's funny.
It sounded like him. I thought, like being grand.
It's a synthetic voice called Solomon.
Whoa! Oh,
yes,
funny.
I know. We're saving money and we're using artificial intelligence instead of paying voice talent.
Oh.
The irony. For most folks out there may know that in my day job, I run a recording studio where we produce audiobooks for the blind and print disabled. And
that's cool.
It's amazing how realistic and lifelike some of this AI is. It's all part of the deep fake conspiracy. So
wow, it fooled me.
Well, we have got a great lineup coming up this weekend. You can go to the website and see the entire list of attendees. But, I wanted to just introduce folks to my friends here, Naomi and Richie West, longtime friends of mine and the Anomaly Archives. In 2010, they helped bring CFZ director Jonathan Downs to Austin and Texas for research and lectures having to do with the Texas Blue Dogs, aka the Chupacabras, and that was really exciting to have somebody from England come over and give a great talk about that subject. And in fact, I've been meaning to play that video that y'all produced several years ago about that investigation. It's a fascinating investigation. And so how are y'all doing tonight, Richie, Naomi?
Doing really well. I've been hunkered down in my job, and Naomi's had to go in and out depending upon the situation of COVID at the school she teaches.
Yeah, we're on our last week we're getting ready to go into Christmas break.
Well, y'all's presentation we added, and I forget if we'd announced all the details of the conference. It was really early on, and Naomi messaged me about an experience of a friend of theirs, and that she thought I'd be interested in because in the past we talked about the Mandela effect and this idea of time slips and so forth. So if you could you give us a brief introduction to your presentation? Well, I think it's called the Mandela effect and an eyewitness account of future memory. What is that about?
I'll start. What we're going to discuss is some of the time slips and Mandela effect and alternate realities. We're going to discuss that a little bit. And we had an opportunity to possibly record something, what we think might be a valid time slip.
Or reality shift is what I'm leaning toward.
And so Naomi actually experienced it, so I'll let her talk about that.
So it was a friend of mine that actually had the experience, but several friends were at my house for a birthday party, and we were sitting around talking about Young Sheldon, the show Young Sheldon. We all love it. We've all seen it many times. And one of my friends, David, starts mentioning this episode that nobody recognized. And as he went on, we were like, David, we don't know what you're talking about. So, and he didn't know why we were confused. He had just seen it a few days ago. And so one of my other friends went online and looked it up, and the episode that David was describing wasn't supposed to air until the following week. So I wondered, is this kind of a paranormal thing? So I went ahead and had him give me all the details that he could, and I put him on my blog that night and added more as he gave them to me later, but well before the original airing of the episode. So the plan, and we carried this out, was for him to be here when the show actually aired. And we recorded it as it aired. We did a live recording of all of us watching it. And I had Dave pause periodically and describe what was going to happen next. And he predicted the show all the way to the end. Yeah. So. And
we used a couple of gauges to try to make sure people see that this was in real time and not done post editing, which could be easily fake. So I used a GPS clock on my phone and had that continually run, so you could see that the GPS time, what it was at the time, this was not another day or whatever. And I did that periodically throughout the episode. At the end, we also turned the channel to other channels to see what the time was. You can see that it was, just all fluid. And we'd be glad to give our video to anybody so they could check the metadata in it, to check to see if it's, copacetic and that it's linear and no we didn't alter anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is fascinating and exciting, and as I say, I think most people, if they've heard of this idea of the Mandela effect, this idea that some people have different memories of events, or it seems often more often focused on products, and that in and of itself I find very fascinating. And maybe more explainable, but there's just several things some of the more classic examples that often, if you tell somebody who's never heard of this, they will freak out. I mean, they will get a little, like, wait a minute, that contradicts my own memory. And obviously, memory is a very malleable thing. This is something I've, droned on and on about being involved in UFO research and whatnot. And, it's important for people to have a better understanding of memory. But this particular case seems very different. And obviously, yes, there could be some simple prosaic explanation, but it has not emerged yet.
No.
And I am really excited that y'all took the time to document this. And I know y'all as very rational, down-to-earth people who, have a very intelligent scientific minds but at the same time, you have an imaginative spirit, and so I know that this must have really grabbed you and led you towards wanting to document it and see what other people think. So I'm really looking forward to that presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So just on a subject, Twee, are you familiar with the Mandela effect at all?
I am, and I am intrigued. It's one of those like late night YouTube things when I'm just goofing around. I'll look to see if anybody has one, and I'll just, I'm all like, well, I think that's a lot of with the product packaging. Maybe that's because we're all exposed to that. But I wonder about it within smaller groups, like within families. My dad brought up something once where he seemed convinced that we'd had this conversation that I knew we never did, and he's got a good memory, things like that. So those are harder to express to other people. But when you get something like advertising, which we're all so exposed to, or I think this is wonderful. What I love is that you guys had the foresight to come up with a way to test this, and that you stopped it and had him say, oh, and next he's going to get a pie in the face in the next scene or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just awesome, man. That's just really good. I'm very excited. I want to see this. I'll be telling people to watch it. I was just going to say, have you looked online to see if anybody else saw that episode?
Well, I need to look again, but I was looking frantically before it aired, because once it aired, it was going to explode. Like blogs and fan sites were going to start talking about the episode, and now it's going to be like finding a needle in a haystack. But prior to the original airing, I looked extensively and could only find very general synopses, which I did put on my blog. One of David's predictions, for the skeptic, one of those predictions could easily have come from the synopses, which is that Sheldon didn't want the crust on his, or wanted the crust on his bread. That was. So I was paying attention to what David said that wasn't in the synopses, and there were plenty of things that.
That is great.
With regard again to the Mandela effect, and I do think that this seems very different to me, and that's why I appreciate that you've incorporated the phrase time slip in there, because or possible future memory, precognition or something. But the fact that he seems to remember actually viewing it as a TV program seems to negate that. But like for me, with regard to the Mandela effect or these various memory alterations, it's the Moonraker braces example, which a lot of people are like, what the heck are you talking about? But for those of us who grew up watching that movie, that Moonraker movie, the James Bond movie with Roger Moore, that's the one. It's one of the ones with the character Jaws, who has the big metal teeth. He's a giant guy, and there's this hilarious scene where he's crashed. It's set in Brazil. The gondola crashes into the gondola station, and he comes up out of the rubble and interacts with this young girl who's done to look like a very young lady with pigtails and glasses. And it turns out, I think she was a famous model. And like he smiles, revealing those big metal teeth. Mm-hmm. And the perfect joke occurs in my memory when she smiles, revealing metal braces. Right. Not in the official version. No braces in the official version. And I know so many people
I remember it that way too.
Oh.
So
population.
And it's like, okay, did we just like all psychically, anticipate that because we recognized a good joke and it got missed? and we just changed it in our own minds because, well, that would be better than what actually happened. I don't know, but this subject is so fascinating, and again, when somebody jumps on an opportunity like this, like as you did, I really commend you. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to hear more about it.
It's going to be fascinating. I just wanted to say something real quick because
sure.
Some of the Mandela effect that I see that people propose are ones where it's just something spelled slightly different. And I'm like, because as a writer and, my dad's an editor, it's like I really pay attention to those words that are misspelled a lot, like the Berenstain Bear one thing. I'm like, I remember that from a kid. That one didn't do it for me because I've always really paid attention to how, when you write an article, you have to go, oh, that is odd. I want to spell it this one way. So I can see where Mandela effect things with spelling can happen because people misspell stuff all the time. So those don't do much for me. But the example you gave really wow, got me excited.
The other thing I want to say, Smiles, is the deja vu experience that you had been mentioned that I had a deja vu experience one time, and I could tell you before it happened what was going to happen. It wasn't like I remembered it differently. I could actually tell you what was going to happen.
Deja vu is usually a momentary, wait, this has happened before, but not, in my experience, something I can predict the next thing. But Richie's had that before. So
I don't know if that's a deja vu or, the closer to time you are to the memory, there's something to that. But I remember it was something simple, like my sister was going to come in the room and say something, and I could have told you, I thought it, my sister's going to come in the room, she's going to turn around and say this, and sure enough she did. I thought that in my mind before it happened. It wasn't like she came into the room, said something, and I've experienced this before. No, I could tell you what was going to happen.
Foreknowledge.
So
exactly, and it. Interestingly enough, one of the earliest experiences I recall of a weird nature was this kind of deja vu moment, but it was extended, and it was at a Tex-Mex restaurant in San Antonio when I was a child. And anyway, I remember it had a very profound effect on me, and I would credit it as one of the many things that I experienced as a child that led me down this path of seeking more information about the nature of reality and all these strange experiences. So these are all fascinating subjects. So Twee is an author, speaker, photographer, YouTuber, and musician, and she's written several books on cemetery symbolism. As we were talking off air, the infamous Santa Claus, Texas bank robbery, and other books. And she's going to be giving a talk this weekend on the Great Texas Airship Mystery. And of course, well, I'll let Twee tell us more about that.
Yeah, this is something I only first heard of in 2012 because I was relatively new to Texas, but I was aware of, when I think of an alien body, a UFO crash with an alien body retrieved, instantly Roswell comes to mind, right? Well, in 1897, there was a crash up in Aurora, Texas, where they recovered a body that was, according to the newspapers at the time, quote unquote, not of this world, a little body, too, as they say. And up in Aurora, Texas. So I was told that there was a grave there. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard, really. I went up there, and now, flash forward, it's 2020. I have been researching that. I was surprised to learn that there were hundreds of airship sightings in Texas at that time. And so I'm finishing up a book that I've been working on for a while. And my approach to it is I'm just so curious of what people were actually reporting it, how they were actually, what they were actually seeing, how they were describing it in the vernacular of the times, if that makes sense. So I just got really, like I said, I thought it was ridiculous. I thought maybe the person who told me was pulling my leg. I went up to the cemetery in Aurora. I only live about 20 minutes away, as it happens, so I've been there a lot. Went up there, and they're on the state historical marker. It's the best one I've ever seen. I love those anyway, but this one mentions a space alien, a UFO crash with a body retrieved that's buried there, and all the stuff around it. It's just fascinating. It's one of those stories that it just grew. I can't stop researching it. I just finally decided that, it's been long enough. I gave a talk at the UFO Congress last year, and I'm like, that's when I realized I have a lot of info here. I should just put out a book. So there you go.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject. As an old hand at the UFO scene, the scare ships or the airship wave across the United States, and actually there was a similar one in England as well. It's a fascinating topic. I mean, it's easily dismissed by skeptics as, oh, it was just this, one-upsmanship amongst newspaper writers, or one hoax spawned another, like a copycat effect. And I mean, obviously there probably was stuff like that, but
I found a few, but it is really interesting. First off, there was an actual tradition of hoax journalism, which are great, and I'll share some. They're really funny. These are very long-winded tales because these guys are getting paid by the word. And people such as like Edgar Allan Poe and Benjamin Franklin, Mark Twain, they would engage in writing these outlandish stories and hope they get picked up by the newspapers. Kind of like, when you pick up the National Enquirer, you're not expecting the same quality of journalism as you are when you pick up a different.
Hey, now, be careful what you say here.
No, actually, I got to say, when I was a kid and my grandmother passed away, I actually inherited her subscriptions to Weekly World News, National Enquirer, The Star, and I sent away for everything in the classifieds, like the Flat Earthers and all this and that. It was really great. So, yeah, that was kind of my entree into a lot of really great theories. But where was I? Let's see. Well, what I was saying, okay, so there really are some tall tales. There's some out-and-out fraud, people trying to fool people. But then I really have been scouring the newspapers, and I love the accounts because back then they would maybe, in some towns, they would say what Reverend John John Smith his sermon had been about. And I find sermons where they talk about, like, well, obviously these ships portend they're an avant courier of the beyond and the end is near. Or I like the other ones where, like, there's ones where if you've never heard a machine before or seen an airplane, the way they describe it as Farmer Joe heard a thunderous cloud of bees approaching and then saw a monster in the sky. Those are what do people actually see? Those have a lot more veracity in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was on a roll.
Things like that, where they described something that looks like a scorpion in the sky, and people say that sounds like a helicopter, with the tail sticking up and it had hair or something. Yeah. So that what you had described, like a farmer hadn't seen a machine before, that sounds a lot like that biblical account of what could be a helicopter.
Oh yeah, and that's for sure. And the degree of fear, sometimes people would see something and their reaction wasn't like today. We're like, oh, I'm putting this on Instagram. You run out there with your phone. I mean, it could be a hyena coming to attack you and people are like, oh, let me get this video. But back then I found accounts of people, they heard something weird. They saw the thing in the sky and they went into their tornado shelter, which totally makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So I got a lot of that. I really wanted to dig in and get the sense for the times, not like us looking back like, I don't know, but what would it have been? I want to put myself in their shoes.
The Aurora account, did that occur like around 47, 48? Was it about that time?
No, 1897, April 17th, 1897, the day before Easter. So there was something crashed in the town of Aurora, and it blew up.
Yeah.
And people, they found a charred remains of something. They said that was a creature, the pilot, who is not of this world. They buried it. The next day, what you do back then is someone passes through town and dies. You either put them in a shop window hoping that their relatives will come by and recognize them, or, which is common, so common.
It's cold and the body doesn't decay.
Yes, it's so funny. They do that a lot. Or you just, no one's going to, they're from out of town. They must be from far away. We're going to bury him, give him a nice Christian burial. Yeah. No one identified him. So that's what they did with this one. And the next day was Easter, so they just buried him. And they'd had a lot of issues there, so yeah.
And it's interesting. Of course, and honestly, the Aurora account has always stood out to me as like the rare exception to that wave of cases. And I've erred on the skeptical side of it. Anytime that there's descriptions of wreckage and bodies, I get even more skeptical. But it is just fascinating, and I love the different accounts and the idea of trying to corroborate these other incidents as well. But one of the weird factoids about Aurora post in the modern era is the grave site. There's been number of gravestones created to mark the location, and they keep getting stolen. In fact, I don't know if they ever actually followed through with this, but there was here in Austin on the Drag on Guadalupe Street in the heart of the University District there used to be in the 90s a store called Fringeware. They had a zine that they published, and they also were a bookstore and coffee shop, and they actually raised funds to have a local artist create a new gravestone.
Oh, really?
For it. I don't think they ever did. I think they didn't raise enough money, but the gravestone keeps getting stolen. And there's some interesting, when you look at, like, if you do a search for it, you'll find a variety of different gravestones because
let's see here. I got a picture one. Yeah, I think I got a coaster made of one. This is the one I saw when I first went. Oops, the wrong way. The one
that's the one I like the most of the pictures.
Yeah, oops, go this way. It's like cutting your hair in the mirror. Okay, now can you see it? I like that one because it's got the little portals, the little portholes. It's kind of cigar shaped. Yep. And that was there when I first went. So I was like, well, it was pretty obvious that was the alien grave. No guessing. It wasn't like a big... but within a few months, I went back. I thought I better get better photos of this, and so I go back up. It was gone.
Wow.
And now they have a big, heavy rock that would be hard to move. So that's been there for a couple of years at least. So I think that's sticking around.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever tried to excavate this?
Yes, there was a lot in the 70s when the story kind of resurfaced. And, the long story short, the cemetery association rather cheekily said you have to notify next of kin before you can exhume. They did ground penetrating radar.
I thought they actually had put a probe down, like some kind of other sensor.
Well, I spoke to Jim Mars about it, and he said, "Oh, hey there, hi."
Hey.
He said that.
Hey, Greg.
Hi. They did ground penetrating radar there, and they had something kind of like a child-sized coffin. And then they had 24/7 cops there guarding it for a while. And then the day that ended, something happened. Jim and Bill Case went back, another fellow reporter, and they saw 3 holes in the ground around where the alleged alien was buried. And apparently their metal detector no longer picked up metal, so they think that there was some sort of surreptitious
pilfering of the grave.
Yeah, pilfering, because you have to get a court order and all this rigmarole. You can't just go around digging things up because you want to. In the Cemetery Association, in a case like this, has the final say. Now, one thing that's interesting is when I was first poking around, no one wanted to talk about it up there. I couldn't really find anybody associated with it. But now, if you go to the Aurora.gov website, they have a mock-up of the like windmill that the UFO. Hey, he's getting spooky over there. He's got a flashlight under his chin next. No, oh yeah, all right. Ha ha. It says like Aurora, a legendary Western town. Like they bought into the whole. They Roswelled it now. Now they're like, yeah, it's kind of cool. But when I was first asking, they're like, we don't want to talk about that.
I think a lot of small towns are coming around to paratourism. It's especially now. Like, well, I mean, they can't do the big festivals like they were starting to do in a lot of these towns. And I don't know. I know some folks might find that just inappropriate or whatever, but these towns got to do what they got to do.
They did. Aurora had one in 2016. They had Travis Walton there and Jim Mars, and I spoke there, and I didn't expect anything. I mean, Aurora, I live in a little town in Aurora, is podunk. It's like 400 people. Oh my gosh. It was like, if you build it, they will come. It was crazy busy. It was like one of the best conferences I've been at. People were so fun. I had a blast.
Well, looking forward to the talk, Twee. Thank you so much for coming tonight and for agreeing to be in the Streamathon and we're doing that this weekend. And Greg, hey man, it's good to see you. How you doing?
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I went to Aurora with the Paramania group, and Jim Mars came out and gave us a talk at the grave, and we picked up the rock. There were 3,000 spiders under it.
Ah.
Yeah, and everybody freaked out and let go, and I kept holding on to it because it was going to fall on somebody's feet. So the spiders started crawling up my arms.
Oh,
wow! That was valiant. I freak out. I like spiders, but they scare me.
Yeah. And that we went over to allegedly where the well was, where they threw all the pieces down, and it's on somebody's property. But Jim Mars and whoever was with us, I can't remember his name.
Daniel
Allen Jones.
Daniel Allen Jones. Yeah,
he
he's
got
great.
permission, I guess. So we all went and hung out there, and Micah Hanks gave a little speech because that's what he does, and everybody had cigars, so we all smoked cigars and listened to Micah. And also, I found a little piece of masonry, sort of near the hole, and I actually have it on my desk. I've got a little piece of the Aurora alien, whatever the pieces down the well.
I have some well water in a bottle.
Oh yeah,
they were giving it out at the.
Wow.
At the
oh, okay, because the well was capped over or something. It was just kind of like a depression in the ground, and there was a bunch of junk around it. So one of them was a piece of masonry that looked like it had been attached to something metal, and so it had the imprint of some kind of piece in it. So I have that piece on my desk right now.
Oh, neat. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Greg is going to be presenting on Saturday as well. I've known him since the 90s when we met through the 1990s alternative media zine scene. He was the publisher, co-founder of the Excluded Middle magazine, and has published a number of books and is very famous for his work with the Paul famous for the Project Beta book about Paul Benowitz. But he's really expanded his thinking. So, and this talk that he's going to give this weekend is right up there with some of the more creative thinking. Can you give us a little bit about that, Greg?
I guess so. I mean, if you say creative thinking, people start thinking, okay, what's this wacko talking about?
Well, that's what I'm trying to make them think.
That's what I'm thinking. What I'm interested in right now is kind of pushes off from my co-creation thing, which I'm still writing about. But this talk is UFOs and the right brain. And so what I'm trying to do is, so many people are trying to solve the UFO thing and have been for decades by saying, if we get the perfect film, if we get the perfect piece of data, if we get the perfect case, then of course everybody will know we've been right all along and we can say, ha ha. But I don't think that's the right approach, because when people witness something like this, their lives are changed in many ways. It is a traumatic experience in many ways. And I think that scientific instruments, while they can tell us a lot, especially about this, can't tell us everything. So what's the only other instrument we're using to pick up UFO experiences? It's people. People are not instruments. People are not scientific instruments that measure things. They are affected by their emotions, their evolution, their genetics, their culture, and these things have to be taken into account. So what my talk is how do people deal with weird input? And how does the human mind process things that are not quantifiable, like in a row of data. And I think that's been ignored by most UFO researchers, because they worship at the temple of, if we can prove this in a hard science way, then people that are serious about it will take it seriously. I don't care if people are serious about it, take it seriously. That's already happening. But what I do care about is finding out how people process input, how we look at pattern, how we look at colors, how we look at how the human mind processes visual and other input. And so to me, that moves into areas of the right brain, the creative, the creative non-analytical right brain. And I'm trying to pay more attention to that. So what the talk focuses on is, what can we get, what is the right brain? What is the creative process? And what is art? And how can that be used to look at the UFO subject? To me, that's kind of fascinating. And so that's basically what the talk is about.
Right on. And I'm having seen a version of it before. I'm very interested in seeing it again. And it's the kind of deep thinking I think that the UFO scene needs. And I'm really looking forward to that. Well, we try to usually keep this.
It'll be modified a little.
Oh yeah. No, it'll make perfect sense because.
I'll say it made me think of Stuart Davis a little bit, who does that Aliens and Artists podcast.
Yeah, I have to
made me
talk
think
to
of that
him.
because he talks about what's that?
I have to talk to him. I'd really
Yeah,
like to talk.
I think so. I was
heard
like,
him on
ooh, yeah,
Coast.
you
I was working that night, and I heard him on Coast. I was working Coast, and I heard him interviewed, and I was like, "Oh my god, I really have to talk to this guy."
Yeah,
So,
as you're saying that, I'm like, wow, this sounds like you two need to mingle.
maybe I should talk to him before the talk.
Yeah, why not?
Well, we do usually keep this pretty tight, down to 30 minutes on Wednesday night, and I got to sleep.
Oh gosh, you poor thing. You've been working
I'm sorry.
hard.
I was making
Appreciate it.
dinner for my parents, and I went and I ran in here.
No. That's great. I'm so glad that you were able to stop in.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming on tonight, and especially for agreeing to be a part of our fundraising effort. It's really appreciated. We couldn't have done as well as we have without the help of all of our other speakers. And this coming Saturday's events are going to be really, really fantastic. We have a really great lineup of folks. Let's see if I can bring this up real quick. So I'll be welcoming folks at 1 p.m. at 1:15 p.m. all the way from from England. Matthew Alford and Robbie Graham will be giving a presentation called Misconspiraceptions about the influence of governments and militaries on the perception management angle of UFOs and the paranormal. And then at 2:15, our friends here, Naomi and Richie West, will be giving a presentation on the Mandela Effect and an eyewitness account of future memory, which you heard a little bit about tonight. And we've got an update about the Stan Friedman archives. For those who are familiar about the UFO scene, Stan Friedman passed away very recently, and he thankfully had prepared to preserve his legacy by donating his voluminous files to a local archive, and we have some updates from that archive that were produced specifically for our fundraising effort, and I think I'm very touched by this. And then after that, we've got Greg Bishop giving his Flying Saucers in the Right Brain, What Art Can Teach Us About the UFO Enigma. That's at 4:15 p.m. All times Central Standard, of course. And then we've got a special pre-recorded discussion between Jeff Kripal and myself about anomalous archives. For those who aren't familiar, Professor Jeff Kripal is a professor of religion at the Rice University in Houston, Texas, and with the help of many others, he has created a new anomalous archive. It's our competition. No. They're part of our wonderful network of weird here in North America, and we all need help. And it was a great pleasure to talk to Jeff, and I think folks will enjoy that discussion. And then at 6:15, Twee Snyder, who you just heard from, will be talking about Great Texas Airship Mystery of 1897. And at 7:15, Nikita Kranda, aka NK Kranda, is going to give a presentation on her efforts at preservationist work of experiencer stories there, and it's called I Saw Something Weird, a conversation about regular people experiencing something they couldn't explain. And then it's going to get really weird. And then we're doing our After Dark virtual drive-in theater, and warning, the film Love and Saucers contains material for mature audiences only. If you've never seen Love and Saucers, this is a really fun documentary by Brad Abrahams, who is a director who's done a number of really great works in the realm of the para and ufological. And Love and Saucers is about an artist who paints his very, very strange experiences, but again, not for children. And then we'll also be showing something that has not yet been released, and that is an episode from a soon-to-be TV series, hopefully, called Keep Folklore Alive. And this particular episode is Telos or Bust. It's all about Mount Shasta and the inner earth. So this is going to be some fun stuff this coming Saturday night and day, and then we've got even more the last day on December 26th. So thank you all for coming on tonight, and thank you for participating. And any of y'all who are here right now are welcome to stick around. I'm going to go ahead and close out the show, but I'll take us down, and then we can chat off the air. So let me do that, and we'll be right. Goodbye, everybody.